Hey everybody, so I'm Ricken, obviously of Ricken Rants. You should know me because I have millions and millions of subscribers on YouTube, obviously. Oh god. So, here's nothing. Today you'll be watching a very special edition of Ricken Rants. It's not gonna be like the regular vlog, singing, whatever. It's gonna be consisting of a special segment which I like to call I Need to Get into University Pronto. According to the train. So today I will be discussing three very important and influential individuals within the social science community that have contributed a ton to the understanding of human growth and development. These consist of Jean Piaget, B.F. Skinner, and here's a tricky one, Yuri Bronfenbrenner. Let's just get right into it. Let's talk about Jean Piaget. Who is Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget was the first psychologist to ever take some sort of an interest in systematic studies of children and the cognitive development within that. Jean Piaget was born on August 8, 1896 in Switzerland. He was the son of a historian, which led to his interest in emulating everything that his father did, except it wouldn't lead to any sort of history background or future. Instead, he focused a lot on the natural sciences. So what did he get from his father? Well, his father was very dedicated and hardworking, considering the fact that he got a degree in history. What's funny is when he was 11 years old, he actually got the opportunity to have his notes on rare part albino, which is essentially when you're extremely pale, sparrow, were published in a magazine. His editors would actually have to hide the fact that he was 11 because they didn't think that readers would find his voice valuable to society. You know what I was doing at 11 years old? Yeah, nothing. Literally, I sat here. I grew from this to that bit. Human growth and development, literally. From there on out, he went to university and received a natural science studies degree in 1916, which earned him a doctoral degree. You know what's funny? I actually was thinking about being a doctor, prior to realizing that I actually suck in science. Piaget's godfather also introduced him to philosophy, which is the study of knowledge. With the combination of biology and philosophy, he definitely took an interest in psychology, which led to him developing various learning theories surrounding children. So what he did was he used his children as lab rats. Disgusting. Having children of his own led to his theory of cognitive development. He stated that children progress through 4 stages of cognitive development. Each stage describes the assembly in which a child views and connects to the world surrounding him or her. Steps consist of the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. So cool. Oh my god, subscribe to my channel. Sensory motor stage. What is this stage? This stage carries out through infancy, so essentially years 0 till 2 years old. During this period, intelligence of the child is demonstrated through motor activity without the use of symbols. Knowledge of the world is limited, but developing, because it's based upon physical interactions/experiences, while the behavior of the child is limited to sensory stimuli. Mobility allows the child to develop and begin new intellectual abilities. Let's take this ugly infant for example. When hiding a ball under a blanket, the infant knows automatically to look for the ball, as the infant is aware of its existence. However, when the ball is placed in another blanket, the first place that the infant will look is the first place that they found it, feeling dissatisfied, as it is not there. Pre-operational. So this is throughout the entirety of toddler/early childhood. Throughout this period, intelligence is demonstrated and measured through a series of symbols, which allows the language to mature and develop. Memory and imagination are also developed through this stage, but thinking is non-logical. Let's take, a glass of juice. Hey Danny.
Hi.
So, are you willing to help me out with something? A little experiment? Stop. Okay, Danny. So we have 2 glasses of relatively the same amount of juice. Now, when pouring one of the glasses of juice into a bigger container, which one do you think has more juice? Do they have the same, or does one have more than the other?
The clear one.
Are Are you kidding me right now?
I'm 10.
The next stage is the third stage, the concrete operational stage. In this stage, intelligence is displayed by logical and systematic manipulation of symbols, of concrete objects. This stage takes place from ages 7 till 11. So let's just go back to the juice example. I like to refer back to this example because this is one of the 2 experiments that Piaget actually used when trying to measure the concrete operational stage. So essentially what he did was he tried to measure whether or not there was an equivalent amount of volume in the larger cup in comparison to that of the smaller cup. It goes a little something like this.
Okay, hi, I'm Ricken. Yeah. Hi. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little experiment. You see these 2 glasses of juice? They look like they're the same, right? So if I were to take one and then pour it into a bigger container, which one would have more juice? Would they be the same? Well, obviously they'd be the same because you said that they started out equivalent to each other. How'd you know that? I'm 11. Cool.
The next stage is the formal operational stage.
Formal operational stage.
This takes place in between adolescence and adulthood. In this stage, intelligence is demonstrated through logical use of symbols related to abstract concepts. For example, let's take a hammer, a feather, and a glass.
Let's pretend that we're explaining the following concept to someone who's over 11 years old. If you have a feather and a glass and tap the feather on top of the glass will break. Now, Bonnie has a feather. If she taps it on the glass, what will happen? The 20-year-old will obviously reply with, well, it'll break, as they are aware of the rules surrounding the feather and the glass.
Up next on the list, we have Skinner. B.F. Skinner. B.F. Actually, no. B.F. Skinner actually stands for Burris Frederick Skinner. Skinner was born in Pennsylvania, a son to a lawyer. You know what's funny? I also wanted to become a lawyer. I'm not sure where I'm going in my future. This isn't about me. Psychologist and eventual behaviorist grew up in a very privileged home. However, he lost his brother at the age of 16. Here's an interesting fact. Skinner actually became an atheist due to the fact that his Christian teacher tried to satisfy the fear that his grandmother created for him revolving around hell. Such influence revolving around atheism allowed him to get his BA due to the fact that he wrote many papers on the subject. After receiving his BAH at Hamilton College, he then attended Harvard, another place which I can probably never get into. At Harvard, he was convinced by a friend of his to study experimental science revolving around behaviorism. This soon led him to become the Edgar Pierce Professor of Psychology at Harvard. Skinner honestly believed that we had something called, wait for it, the mind. But as opposed to smoke and mirrors, instead, the mind was simply much more of a productive way to study, observe behavior. Skinner believed that the best way to understand behavior was to look at causes of an action. He called this approach operant conditioning. Skinner's theory of operant conditioning was based upon work that revolved around Thorndike, who was another theorist who studied animals and the behavior of such by placing them in a puzzle box to propose the theory called law of effect. Skinner regarded such a concept by experimenting with various animals such as rats, placing them in a box called the Skinner box. Now this is about to get a little malevolent here. By placing a rat in a box with a lever and a speaker, along with food, he was able to condition the behavior as well as measure such of the rat. The rat would continue to get shocked until pulling the lever. B.F. Skinner was able to coin the term operant conditioning. So essentially, by roughly changing the behavior using reinforcement, he was able to measure such a desired response. Skinner was able to conclude to 3 types of responses of operant conditioning that follow behavior. Such include neutral operant, reinforcers, and punishers. Neutral operants are responses from the environment that neither increase nor decrease the probability of a behavior being repeated. Reinforcers can be split up into 2, as well as negative reinforcers. Perks of the act that you are doing within your environment, as well as the negative connotations associated with such. So essentially consequences. Punishers, however, are responses from the environment that decrease the likelihood of a behavior being repeated.
For example, let's say I'm a young, impressionable high school student, that which I am. And the chief consequence of me smoking marijuana would consist of me hanging out with the crowd that I always wanted to hang out with. This would be a positive reinforcement, as I'd be rewarded for smoking the marijuana. Now, If I were not to be rewarded by such behavior, I would do quite the opposite, which would be a punishment. The main consequence would include me being caught, canned, or possibly suspended from school, which would also result in my parents getting involved. Since I would be punished, then the consequences would most likely allow me to never smoke again.
Next, we have Brothenbrenner, the final theory which we will be exhibiting today. However, I realize this is probably getting very, very boring at the fact that you're looking at me. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna change it up a little and use a little drawing to explain how I feel, as well as jump on my bed. That's for the video! It's not for the video.
Now let's talk about Yuri Brothenbrenner. The American developmental psychologist was born in April 1917 and died in September 2005. RIP. Or is it RIP? Anyway, he and his neuropathologist father moved from Soviet Union to USA. Here, he entered the US military. However, prior to such a detail, he went to Cornell University and received a bachelor in psychology, earning his master's from Harvard, another keener. After receiving his degree in psychology from Harvard University, he moved on to develop the ecological systems theory. This theory consisted of various systems. The microsystem setting is the direct environment in which we live our lives. Families and friends, as well as classmates and teachers, may consist and remain present in such a system. The microsystem is a setting in which we have direct social interactions with these social agents. The theory states that the more recipients that we experience when socializing, the more we contribute to the construction of such an environment. The mesosystem is next. The mesosystem involves the relations between the microsystems in one's life. This means that, for example, a family may have an active role in the experience related to a school experience. For example, if a child is neglected by his or her family, then he or her may have a low chance of developing a positive attitude towards his teachers. This may create a sense of awkwardness between his peers and may resort to some sort of a withdrawal. Next on the list is the exosystem. The exosystem is a setting in which there is a link between the context in which a person does not have any role and the context in which the person is actively participating. For example, if a child is attached to his or her father more than the other, and if one of them were to go on a business trip of some sort for months, there may remain some sort of a conflict between whoever they are staying with, depending on who they're closer with. Next on the list is the macrosystem. The macrosystem setting is the actual culture of an individual. The culture involves a socio-economical status of the person and his or her family. Next, we have the macrosystem. The macrosystem is a setting in which the actual culture of the individual is relevant. The culture context involves the socio-economic status of the person and his or her family, her ethnicity, or his or her race.
And there you have it. Those are the 3 theorists that I wanted to focus on today. Hopefully, get into university to become the theorist. But anyway, I want to thank all of you for watching my video, and I really hope that you all learned something. I just want to thank all of you guys out there, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel. I upload a new video every Thursday, and I will see you later.